Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download both the BarnBurner and Zingo TV apps in their respective app store on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, normally, throughout the last few months, Mondays at 2 o'clock, we do the NFL Blitz. But things have changed a little bit because we do have one major sport that is back, and that is Major League Baseball. So to give you, the viewers, all the insight onto what's happening in the world of sports, I think the best idea is to go with crunching the numbers. That way we have the ability to talk about all sports and, well, mostly baseball, which is the sport that is playing. And I guess you can say playing for now because we got big news from Major League Baseball today. We're going to get to all that. Before we get to that, though, one piece of news from the National Football League. Our producer, Chrissy, will like this. Raheem Mostert, who had requested a trade a few weeks back, they have reworked his deal. So Mostert will be staying in San Francisco. They cleared the air. They reworked the deal. He, of course, has been their number one running back last year. He's going to stay in San Francisco after getting a new contract. So good news for the 49ers and their fan base. Today, tough day for Major League Baseball, and it comes just days after opening day on Thursday. So the season gets going Thursday with the Nationals and the Yankees, and before the season even starts, Washington's best player, Juan Soto, tests positive for COVID-19, out of the lineup for opening day and for the whole Yankees series. He can't get back in the lineup until he has 2 straight negative tests. So he's out. The Nationals play without him and drop 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. And, they also lost Steven Strasburg on Saturday because of some nerve damage in his hand. So COVID-19 already a big issue. And then things go from bad to a complete disaster yesterday when the Miami Marlins scratched their starter and a bunch of other players because of a COVID outbreak. So they're in Philadelphia. They're in Philadelphia playing the Phillies, and they take the field, they play the game, and the Marlins actually win the game. The Marlins took 2 out of 3 against the Phillies in that series. But it is now being reported today at least 13 players in the Miami Marlins clubhouse were testing positive for COVID. So the Marlins have had to postpone their game tonight against the Orioles. And the trickle-down effect is the Yankees and Philadelphia also get postponed because Philadelphia was the team that hosted the Marlins, and they now have to all test and make sure that they're okay after playing against this team yesterday. So that gets postponed. And obviously, we have a situation where every team needs to play 60 games. Every team needs to have a complete and fair schedule in order for the season to go into the next round. And of course, we have expanded playoffs. We got all sorts of new rules to talk about. We saw the new rule in baseball throughout the weekend, where going to extra innings, the team automatically gets the ghost runner on second. And the Angels really botched that. They had Ohtani as their ghost runner on Saturday. He ended up on a fielder's choice getting tagged out on the very first play. So the Angels did not score, and the A's would go on to hit a walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the inning. Yesterday, a situation with the Blue Jays where they had a ghost runner on second. They stole third after initially being called out, The runner was called safe due to a great tag. He ended up scoring on a sac fly, but the Jays would give up 2 in the bottom of the inning, electing to walk the first batter to put 2 Rays on first and second with nobody out before Kevin Kiermaier hit a walk-off triple to win the ball game. So the baseball new rules have been something to really get a grasp on. The DH as well. Full DH now in National League ballparks, so certain NL teams certainly aren't used to having that. Pitchers, another big one. Pitchers, when you come into a game, are forced to face 3 hitters. So there's no more specialists coming in to face 1 batter. You're now forced to face 3 hitters. So that has been something to try to figure out and get our situation where we're understanding everything that's. I mean, we saw yesterday as well. Pittsburgh St. Louis Pirates manager coming out to argue with the umpire after his pitcher got thrown out, and you got to put a mask on. Umpires put a mask on. They got to keep socially distanced. So it's really weird watching baseball and the return to play. I watched a lot of it. First weekend back, the ratings were through the roof. The game, the Nationals-Yankees game on Thursday, was the largest audience for a regular season game in years. Craziness, too, after one weekend that we don't have one 3-0 team or one 0-3 team. No one swept. No one got swept. First time since like 1956 you don't have a 3-0 team. You would have figured the Dodgers would have swept the Giants. They won the first 2 games like 17-2 combined score and then lost the next 2 games. Just craziness. The Yankees won 2 out of 3 against the Nationals. The one game they lost was the game where Strasburg got scratched on Saturday. The Nationals blew out the Yankees 9-2 in that game. James Paxton got his butt kicked. A lot of pitchers had rough days. James Paxton didn't get an out in the second inning. Yesterday, Rick Porcello, Mets debut. Couldn't get an out in the third inning. Lasted 2 innings. The worst of all, Shohei Ohtani yesterday didn't record an out, period. 3 walks, 3 hits, 4 runs. He gone. Doesn't get an out. The stuff we saw over the last 4 days is crazy. Then you had a couple guys in Cleveland that put on absolute clinics. Shane Bieber, double-digit strikeout, just phenomenal effort in his first start against the Royals. And then Carlos Carrasco. Cookie, same thing, double-digit strikeouts yesterday against the Royals. So Carrasco and Bieber, 2 of the best pitching performances we saw, both of them obviously in that Cleveland-KC series. And Cleveland doesn't get the sweep because KC wins the middle game of that series. So yeah, a lot to digest. Let's get back to the news of the day, the outbreak in Miami. Now we know what's going on with COVID with Miami, with the whole state of Florida. Right now the Marlins, they have a taxi squad of up to 30 players. They're going to have to try to continue to play with these players. They have to play because if they don't play, the whole season's in jeopardy. You can't just have one team not play when the schedule is trying to play a balanced, even schedule. This will not work if one team isn't there. So the Marlins need to keep playing. They all got to test. They've all got to see if there are more positive tests, who's able to play, who's not able to play. I've already talked about how this affected the Phillies because the Marlins were in Philadelphia. So now the visiting clubhouse has to be totally disinfected. And, they got to make sure that's okay. And baseball's obviously hoping that this outbreak is confined to just the Marlins. But you never know. The Yankees will have to make up their game from today against the Phillies. The Marlins and the Orioles will have to make up their games. Double headers maybe. You see what happened, and now you understand why the Canadian government didn't allow the Blue Jays to play here. Had the Blue Jays played their home games in Toronto, the Florida teams, the Marlins and the Rays, would have to come here. That would be a disaster. Let's call it out for what it is. I mean, obviously there's a big problem out there, and they avoided it. So if the Phillies and Yankees are cleared to play by tomorrow, which is what they're hoping for, you can play a doubleheader tomorrow, or you could play a game on August 24th where both teams have the day off. Obviously baseball is just hoping the Marlins will just use their players from their taxi squad. We've already heard from Don Mattingly and Derek Jeter today. They obviously want to continue to play. David Price was on Twitter today saying, this is a big reason why he stayed home. He didn't feel like baseball had the proper measures in place to keep the players safe. I mean, baseball's the sport where you've got teams traveling. That's not the case in hockey and basketball. The NBA bubble and the NHL bubble have worked out. NHL did all their testing, 0 positive COVID tests today. NBA, the players that have been there have been all good, except, of course, when you have players like Lou Williams who leave for emergency and get caught at a strip club. That's a problem. But the players that are following the rules and staying in the bubble and doing what they need to do, then, I'm optimistic those sports can return to play and finish their respective seasons. Baseball, trying to play a 60-game season where everybody's traveling is complicated. MLS, they had some early tests, positive tests, but they've been really good lately too. Their return to play has been pretty seamless since the playoffs began. It wasn't a very good playoff for the 3 Canadian teams. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver all get eliminated in the round of 16, but all the games went on the right times. After initially, of course, we had some issues with the sport where teams weren't showing up, games were being played at different times, and you had teams like Nashville that were forced to opt out because too many players tested positive. So we knew that the coronavirus was going to be an issue with sports. You got to understand sports is doing the best they can to come back. Every respective sport has to do what they feel like is the safest thing for their sport, but you knew that this was not going to go seamlessly, and you knew that there were going to be issues due to COVID, and they are definitely coming up in baseball. After one series, every team's played one series right now, and here we go. Players will have the ability to opt out in baseball. We've already seen one of the Rockies relievers do so. I'm hoping that this was a one-time thing and players do not start abandoning ship and leaving, and that we can continue to play, because as far as on the field, that there was so much to be intrigued by in the first weekend. We're going to go over our new power rankings. We're going to go over all the series and what each team dealt with, because it's really the first opportunity I've had since mid-March to actually talk about sports that are being played. I'm not a big soccer guy, not a NASCAR guy, not a golf guy. Those sports have all been able to come back. Baseball, the first of the 4 major sports to come back. Bob Nightingale on Twitter: there will be additional priority testing for teams who have had an outbreak, MLB officials say, but no serious talks as of yet to cancel or pause the season, in the words of one of the owners today on the conference call. Obviously, the situation is fluid. So this is going to be a big talking point. I mentioned the Colorado reliever. It was Tim Collins, who was the first player to opt out since the Marlins outbreak and the news that came down today. And that's where we are right now in baseball. It is scary, but that is that's the situation. And Buster Only just tweeting out now, if MLB continues to try to move forward with games, and that is the only expectation with a lot of teams, they shouldn't worry about the integrity of a 60-game schedule. If some teams play 55 games, others 59 or 60, just go by winning percentage. That is what happened after the 1981 strike. So I believe MLB will try to have every team play 60 games based on their playoff format. Of course, the playoff format that was decided before Thursday's game, like between the Yankees and Nationals, was that you will now have 8 teams make the playoffs in each league. So the top 2 teams in each league, in each division, first place, second place, automatically make it. They will be the 1 to 6 seeds. The 7 and 8 seeds will be the 2 best teams in each league that did not finish in first or second. So the 2 best teams, whether it be the third place team in the Central, the East, the West, and then the other best third place team, or you could have 2 in the same division. You could have 4 teams from one division make it if they had the third place and fourth place team in that division were better than every other third place team in the rest of the league. So that is the new format. And I feel like with that format, it is only fair that the teams play the same amount of games. The NHL was dealing with this issue with playoffs because certain teams that play more than other teams, when the pause happened, so it wasn't fair to just go by the top 8 in each league will get in, because teams like the Rangers, the Panthers would have an argument that they didn't get an opportunity to play out their season to be a playoff team, which is why the NHL went to a different model, the top 4 teams making it in each league, in each conference, and then you have the other 8 play out. So teams that would have missed the playoffs under the old format, like the Blackhawks, the Rangers, the Panthers, they all get a chance now in a qualifying round, the Blue Jackets as well, to get into the normal round of 8. So I believe baseball will give everybody an opportunity to play either 59 or 60 games, and will not have a team play 55 games and say, well, you're half a game back of this team and your winning percentage is just a little bit smaller, so you don't get into the playoffs. That doesn't exactly seem fair, and we still have to worry about fairness when it comes to what's going on in Major League Baseball, despite this Marlins outbreak. So, this is what we saw in the first weekend. We're going to go over the power rankings from the beginning and talk about what each team did in their first weekend. We're going to go over the numbers as we do here on Crunching the Numbers. We'll also go over today's baseball board, a lot of games to be played later on today. So the consensus number 1 team in baseball going in was the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it was not a great weekend for them. Clayton Kershaw was supposed to be their opening day starter. He gets scratched, got hurt working out in the gym. They're okay in their first 2 games. They crushed the San Francisco Giants, who to me look like a AAA team at best, right? Like, I mean, Buster Posey opted out. Madison Bumgarner's gone. You look at their lineup, bunch of kids. Yastrzemski should be good, but I mean, you still got borderline MLBers like Pablo Sandoval starting every day for you. And after getting crushed in their first 2 games, the Giants, as big, huge underdogs, find a way to win the next 2 games. I was surprised they one Saturday and one Sunday. I mean, yesterday, Drew Smiley, who could not have pitched much worse last year, finds a way to shut down the Dodgers, doesn't give up an extra base hit, only gives up one run, just craziness. So the Dodgers do not win their first 4-game series against the Giants. Dustin May looked good in the opener pitching for Kershaw, but tough go for them. As far as the Yankees go, good series for them. They take 2 out of 3. Garrett Cole pitches great opening night. Giancarlo Stanton looks like an absolute monster. After struggling last year with injuries, he lost a lot of weight in the offseason, and he is absolutely destroying the ball. Saturday's home run went 483 feet. Exit velocity of 121.7 miles. 121.3 miles. The second fastest home run ever hit. Second to him, who hit 121.7 a couple years ago, back in 2018. The number 3 team going into the year was the Twins, and they look good. They won their series against the White Sox, 2-1. Nelson Cruz, man, this guy's ageless. Yesterday, a couple bombs, 7 RBIs. He's got 10 RBIs on the year. Cruz, of course, being 40 years old, hit 10 RBIs in the first series. Batted .538 over 3 games. Wow. Twins winning 14-2 yesterday. It's a pretty good White Sox team. Kenta Maeda as well, who came over from the Dodgers, had a good start for the Twinkies as well. The Rays were lucky to win their series against the Blue Jays. We'll talk a lot more about that series on Blue Jays Strike Zone, but obviously, as a Blue Jay fan, I watched that whole series, and the Rays did not get a good outing from Charlie Morton on their home opener, outpitched by Hyun-Jin Ryu, who didn't get out of the 5th inning himself. Morton gives it the 3-run home run to Cavan Biggio. Rays almost come back, though, against a pretty beleaguered Blue Jay bullpen. And then the next 2 games, the Blue Jays unable to close out. I mean, the Rays against Sam Gaviglio on Saturday in a 1-1 tie, able to score 3 runs in the 8th inning to win that game. And then yesterday, a game that they never should have won. They're down 4-0 late. Come back, scratch out a couple runs, go into the 9th inning down 4-2 against Ken Giles. Giles records the first 2 outs, and then the Braves, with a couple walks, a double, Giles leaves with an injury, and the Braves tie the game and then walk it off with a Kiermaier walk-off triple in the bottom of the 10th. So they come back in the 9th, come back in the 10th, win the series against the Blue Jays in a pretty crazy series. A lot of ups and downs for both teams in that series. The Braves offense struggled the first 2 games against the Mets. They lose the opener 1-0. Obviously, Atlanta not getting any offense going in their first game against one of the best pitchers in baseball, but then things got a lot better as they were able to come back on Saturday against Diaz, who was trying to save it out and get the Mets to 2-0. Instead, the Braves get a home run in the 9th inning, win that game, and then yesterday absolutely kicked the crap out of Rick Porcello in his Mets debut as they score 14 runs. Dansby Swanson off to a good start, 5 for 12, 6 RBIs. He had 5 RBIs in yesterday's game in the 4th inning. Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. Obviously, a lot of bats in that lineup. Freddie Freeman, that's a pretty good Atlanta team, and they right now are feeling pretty good about themselves after winning 2 of the last 3 games at Citi Field against the Mets. So you look at the power rankings of the rest of the teams. The Astros were the number 3 team coming in, but they suffered a huge blow yesterday. Justin Verlander announced that he was going to be out for the year. Now, he went on Twitter and refuted that report, saying it's going to only be a couple weeks, but they're going to reevaluate Verlander in a couple weeks. They already lost Garrett Cole in the offseason, so if they lose Verlander, they're in big trouble. they as far as, being a World Series contender. The Athletics will be right on their heels. The A's had a pretty good series against the Angels. I mentioned yesterday they beat up on Shohei Ohtani. Didn't even allow the Angels starter to record an out the day before. They won in a walk-off grand slam on Saturday, so a pretty good weekend for the Athletics. Nationals have not had very good luck coming into the year, losing Juan Soto to COVID-19. Now, he's been asymptomatic, and he's had a couple, I believe, false tests since, so they should be able to get him back soon. That's the hope in Washington. Nationals getting ready to play the Blue Jays, 4-game series starting tonight. The Nationals will play all 4 games at home because the Blue Jays were going to play the last 2 games of that series at home, but of course they didn't have a home until they went with their last resort, their AAA club, Buffalo, and they have to spend a lot of time and money to get that stadium up to major league caliber. So the Nationals are going to play 4 games at home against the Blue Jays and what was supposed to be a 2-2 home-and-home split. Cardinals had a good start to their series. They beat up on the Pirates and then lost yesterday when they had a chance to sweep. The Cubs as well took 2 out of 3 against the Brewers. Indians, I mentioned the performances they got out of Carrasco and Bieber, unable to win the middle game against the Royals. The Reds, after kicking the crap out of the Tigers on opening day, lost the next 2 games to Detroit. Shocker. Detroit, bottom-feeding team. Couple, if you would have told me going into opening weekend of baseball that the Giants, Tigers, and Orioles would all win 2 games in their first series, I would have thought you were crazy. I mean, those teams are projected to win 20 games all year. And yet the Giants, Orioles, and Tigers, I'll say it again, Giants, Orioles, and Tigers all won 2 games. And they did it against really good teams. Well, Orioles not exactly, a pretty mediocre Red Sox team. But Giants winning 2 against the Dodgers and Tigers winning 2 against the Reds, a really good Reds team with a lot of buzz. Bit of a shocker. Rough series for the Mets, who lose 2 out of 3 of the Braves after getting that great performance in their home opener. And they're already dealing with some injuries, right? Noah Syndergaard is hurt. Marcus Stroman is hurt. So Jacob deGrom, who shut out the Braves, is now going to be relied on to really carry the slack for that pitching staff that thought going into the year they were going to be really good, right? I mean, you have Stroman and Syndergaard with deGrom. You got to feel good about your chances. But right now, Stroman out a couple weeks, Syndergaard out for the year. Huge blow to the New York Mets. The Brewers lose 2 out of 3 at Wrigley Field. The Phillies, just a disastrous series for them. I mean, to lose 2 out of 3 to that Marlins team at home when Miami was dealing with what they were dealing with COVID, that's unacceptable. Philadelphia's got to feel pretty crappy about how they started the year. Now, their game tonight postponed because they were, of course, had the Marlins in their ballpark. Padres, they won their series. Well, they won the 2 of the first 3 against the D-backs. They're playing the 4th game tonight. Angels, tough series for them to lose the way they did on Saturday and Sunday. At least Mike Trout got off the schneid yesterday with a big 3-run home run. D-backs, tough loss for them, losing 2 out of 3 to the Padres. And then you got the White Sox, high expectations for them. But the Twins are the favorite to win the Central and really flex their muscles in that first series. The Blue Jays, who, should have won at least 2 of those games for sure against Tampa Bay, find themselves 1-2 now, having to face the Nationals for 4 games. Red Sox, I mean, pretty embarrassing for them. They blew out the Orioles in the first game. Made it look pretty easy. You thought maybe the Red Sox would beat up on the Orioles all weekend. Instead, they lose the next 2, Saturday and Sunday, to a terrible Baltimore team. The Rangers and Rockies playing a series. Corey Kluber yesterday as well, leaving that start early for Texas in his Rangers debut with a forearm injury. So terrible news for them. That is our power rankings right now. As far as first impressions go, let's take a look at what every team's going through right now. And I mentioned that Rays series, Ji-Man Choi homering yesterday from the other side of the plate against the Blue Jays, 429-foot shot after just starting to learn how to hit from the right side. So that was big for him. Talked about Mike Trout's home run. It came on a 3-0 pitch. Justin two Astros were hit, but it did not look like either one were intentional. The rest of baseball, taking a look at some of the other stories right now. Christian Yelich, tough for him. He, of course, got hurt late last year. He was having an MVP season, and he gets hurt late in the year, isn't able to play for Milwaukee in their wild card game against Washington, and he comes back and he only went 1 for 13 in the 3-game series against the Cubs. His one hit was a 2-run home run, but not good for him. Not a great start. The Cubs, who won this series against the Brewers, didn't get a lot of offense. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and Jason Hayward went a combined 6 for 45, but they got really good performances on the mound, able to win that series. The Dodgers, should be okay, but they will need Clayton Kershaw to be back healthy, and we haven't even seen Walker Buehler yet. I mean, hard to believe they could have 4 games against the Giants and Walker Buehler not pitching one of them, but he's going to go in their next game. Daniel Bard, nice story for the Rockies. He pitched on Saturday against the Rangers, and he actually won. And the reason why it's a big story was because he hasn't pitched in the majors since 2013, 7 years ago. He had the yips, bounced around the minors, retired, and came back. And nice story for him. He got his velocity back. He was pitching 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, picked up the win for the Rockies in their game against the Rangers. So I mentioned it's the first time in 66 years we don't have a team at 3-0. I feel like that's a bit of a shocker, right? I mean, there were a lot of potentials for the haves against the have-nots, and a lot of huge upsets, right? Like this, some monument. I mean, if you played the Giants, their last 2 games against the Dodgers, if you played the Tigers, the last 2 games against the Reds, if you played the Orioles, the last 2 games against the Red Sox, you cleaned up. Huge underdogs. So, see how that plays out if parity is a thing in baseball, because baseball is going to be different this year, right? I mean, there really is no incentive to win your division, right? Like, what's the incentive? I feel like you could have a possibility of a Dodgers team that's like 45-15 playing in the first round against the 8th seed that is, we'll say the Mets that are 26-34. Possible. The Mets could be, the 8th best team. And then the Mets throw out Jacob deGrom, a healthy Marcus Stroman, and they somehow shock the Dodgers. Because, I mean, listen, it happens. We just saw a weekend in baseball where humongous favorites lost their series. Best of 3 series. That can happen. Baseball is the one sport where that can happen. And so going all out and winning your division doesn't really seem like in this format is really put you in that great a position. That's what I don't like about baseball's playoff format. I feel like I'm okay with the amount of teams, but I think you should have given the top couple teams buys, not have to play that best of 3. I think in a 162 game schedule next year, that's what if you're going to keep this playoff format, you can't have 1 versus 8. It's not like the NBA or the NHL where, well, especially the NBA, a number 1 never loses to a number 8 in the NBA, right? The Milwaukee Bucks, the number 1 seed in the NBA, are not going to lose their first round playoff series to the Orlando Magic. It just isn't going to happen unless Giannis Antetokounmpo gets hurt and crazy stuff happens. It just isn't happening. Baseball is not like that. The Dodgers just lost 2 games to the Giants. The Dodgers were a minus 370 favorite. I mean, Gabe Kapler, he doesn't even tell you who he's going to pitch until a few hours before. He doesn't know. They got nothing. And they just beat the Dodgers 2 times. If that Giants team can beat the Dodgers 2 times, then a number 8 seed can definitely go into the playoffs and beat a powerhouse. They can get a couple great pitching performances and win. So I don't like the fact that you can work all year in baseball and be gone just like that in a best of 3. It doesn't work for me. I don't think it's fair. So I think that baseball is going to have to look at this next year and say, okay, the 1 and 2 seeds get buys. So it'll be the 3 seed against the 8, the 4 against the 7, the 5 against the 6, and work it out from there. You just can't have a possibility of a great team, a Dodgers or a Yankees, losing to an 8 seed in that first round. To me, that's an issue. So we move on to baseball tonight. Angels and A's are going to continue their series. The Angels have lost 2 of the first 3. It's going to be Canning against Bassett, with Bassett laying minus 115. Weaver goes for the D-backs. They go for the split against the Padres. Lucchesi goes for San Diego. Padres a minus 120 favorite. Anibal Sanchez goes for the Nationals against Trent Thornton, who makes his season debut for the Blue Jays. Jays really losing 2 painful games at the Trop. The Nationals a minus 115 favorite. John Lester and the Cubs against Wade Miley and the Reds. Good series in the NL Central. 2 teams that are definitely going to be in the mix for playoff spots in the division. Right now, Lester and the Cubs, the small road favorite. Fulton Evans and the Braves against Glasnow and the Rays. The Rays a minus 140 favorite. Couple games postponed, one of them being the Yankees and the Phillies due to the Marlins outbreak. So they're going to have to figure out when to play that game. Orioles and Marlins obviously postponed as well. Brewers and Pirates. The Brewers a big favorite on the road with Hauser against Brault. Minus 165 are the Brewers in that game. Graveman and the Mariners looking to take 2 in a row against the Astros. The Mariners beat Houston after getting their butts whipped the first 2 games of that series. James going for the Stros. They lay 235. Cease and the White Sox against Cavale and the Indians, who lay $1.25. Montgomery and the Royals, small dogs against Fulmer and the Tigers. And at Fenway Park, Osich, who's going to probably go an inning or two for the Red Sox, against Michael Wacha and the Mets. The Mets, small favorites, laying 115 in that game this evening. So, while baseball's dealing with what they're dealing with COVID, 0 positive COVID-19 tests among the NHL officials, referees, linesmen inside the bubbles in Edmonton and Toronto since July 21st. 0 positive tests, which is great. NBA, we haven't heard of that being an issue. Initially, it was with Westbrook, and that has been cleared up, and he played in their exhibition game, and they will continue to play. The NBA, of course, playing 8 games to figure out where they are for seedings. Interesting, I saw some lines on how many wins all the NBA teams would get in their 8 games in the bubble. So we'll go over that, tell you what's expected of those 8 teams as they all try to play for seedings. So in the 8-game format, the Boston Celtics, pretty easy schedule. Their win total's 5.5, so they would have to go 6-2 to get the over. The Brooklyn Nets, nothing's expected of them with all the players opting out. Their projected win total of the 8 games is 2.5. The Dallas Mavericks, 4.5. Denver Nuggets, 4.5 as well. Houston, 4.5. Indiana dealing with a lot. I mean, Sabonis just got hurt. They're still trying to figure out if Victor Oladipo is going to play. Their win total is 3.5. The Clippers, they got some issues right now. They got some players leaving the bubble, and of course, they had the issue with Lou Williams, who got caught doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing when he left the bubble. He's now quarantining for 10 days. But their win total remains 5.5, so they're expected to win 5 or 6 of the 8 games. Same with the Lakers. The Grizzlies, 3.5. The Heat, 4. The Bucks, 5.5. The Pelicans, 4.5. The Thunder, 4. The Magic, 3.5. The Sixers, 5. The Suns, 2. Blazers, 3.5. Kings, 3.5. Spurs, 2.5. Raptors, 4.5. Jazz, 4. And the Wizards, who will be playing without Bradley Beal, at 2. It's going to be interesting because a lot of teams are going to have some games that are be playing really don't mean anything. When you've locked up spots, what does it matter? I mean, the Lakers should have the 1 seed locked up. So what do they need to play LeBron James and Anthony Davis down the stretch in this tournament? Same with the Bucks. They're going to have that 1 seed locked down very soon. So why would you risk Giannis Antetokounmpo? If the Raptors lock up the division and lock up the 2 seed, why would they risk Siakam, Lowry, Ibaka, Gasol? I mean, we saw yesterday Fred VanVleet got shaken up in the game against Portland. So a lot of questions there, right? Like, what do you do? This could be really interesting. NHL gets ready as well. They're going to get really busy on Saturday. As they start the playoff Saturday. Take a look at the series prices in the NHL. They're always changing a little bit. Penguins, who've been dealing with Sidney Crosby we haven't known exactly what's going on with him. He hasn't been skating, and right now they don't know if he's going to play their exhibition game tomorrow. But the Penguins are a minus 230 favorite against the Canadiens. Hurricanes remain a minus 140 favorite against the Rangers. Islanders a small 120 favorite against the Panthers. Ever since it was announced that Edmonton would be a hub city, the Oilers have had really seen their odds skyrocket, now minus 172 against Chicago. Oilers playing on home ice. The Flames are minus 130 favorite against the Jets. The Leafs are minus 165 favorite against the Jackets. The Predators against the Coyotes. Preds minus 140. The Coyotes seeing their GM just basically stepped down yesterday, saying that due to issues with management, he could not accompany the team to Edmonton for their playoffs, and the Coyotes were less than pleased. Some pretty strong words going back and forth yesterday between the Coyotes and now their former GM as Steve Sullivan takes over. And the Canucks are minus 130 favorite against the Minnesota Wild. It's been a busy couple days, and we're trying, crunching the numbers. We always will try to get you updated on all the major sports. Baseball was a big focus today because they're playing, and they such a huge talking point today with the Marlins and that COVID situation. I mentioned Sidney Crosby. He was a full participant in practice today. According to Mike Sullivan, he's going to decide if he's going to play their exhibition game. And, I continue to be optimistic that baseball will be able to play. But there's always, this COVID thing has created some tough situations. I mean, Davey Martinez today was very emotional, talking about the Juan Soto situation, COVID situation. It's definitely, the players' health has got to be the number one concern. So you got to make sure the players that are playing are coming back safely, coming back and, with everything that you can do to keep the staff and the team safe for the testing that's out there. But again, there's just no guarantees, right? So the NFL is doing their best to make sure they start on time, but there are a lot of people right now that just don't feel like that's possible. So I'm hopeful, because I do this for a living. It's important to me that I have my sports back, but again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I want this being done in jeopardizing players' health and safety. That's not right. You've got to make sure that everybody is, to the best of the ability of every league, being able to play and then be isolated and be at as little risk as possible of picking up the disease. And I've seen all the new rules for baseball, like the celebration and everything else, but then I did see it a few times yesterday where you have players hugging and jumping up and down and lifting each other up, and I don't know, it's tough, man. You're used to a certain way of playing and a certain way of acting, and then when you're being told to do it differently, it it's very difficult to change patterns that you have. I myself am a creature of habit. So you tell me now I got to do everything differently. No matter what you're doing, it's going to be difficult, right? Like you're just used to a certain way of playing, celebrating, acting, what you do after the game, before the game, during the game. But it's a different world, and the Marlins situation today is a very scary one, and one that we all have to be on top of and take very seriously. Before we go, some futures for the NFL. I've talked about win totals and divisions ad nauseum on my NFL Blitz shows. So I want to talk about a new thing where you could bet about where each team's going to finish. I do have a few that I like. The Chicago Bears to finish fourth. I think we all know the Packers and the Vikings are going to battle for the North. I think the Lions can win more games than the Bears. So if the Lions win more of the games than the Bears and the Bears finish fourth, plus 400, good value. Really good value. Other value I see, the Rams finishing last. Listen, I think we know that the Niners and the Seahawks probably battle for that division. If Arizona can be as good as we think they are and they can win more games than the Rams, plus 300, the Rams to finish last, really good value there as well. There's a couple of sure ones. I think Carolina to finish last, minus 250. You got to lay it, right? Like New Orleans and Tampa Bay, they're going to have double digits, or at least close to it. And I think Atlanta is a lot better than Carolina, wins 8 or 9 games. So Carolina, who's projected to win 5, them to finish last, it's worth laying 250 there. Some other ones that are intriguing to me. New England to finish second at plus 200. I think the Bills win the division, but I think New England's probably better than the Jets and the Dolphins, so there's some value there. Jacksonville to finish last. Indianapolis and Tennessee are going to probably battle for that division. And I think Houston, despite the regression, is still a lot better than Jacksonville. So Jacksonville to finish last, minus 250. I think that's definitely worth a look. That's what stands out to me as far as those bets go. Always stuff that you can now, with sports coming back, there's always stuff now to look at and to try to stay on top of. Talked about NFL, week 1 lines. I've got the week 2 lines. As long as the games are played, right? Some intriguing ones on prime time. The Bengals and the Browns. The Browns are a 7.5-point favorite against the Bengals in week 2. Some other big favorites week 2 up at the Bucks, an 8-point favorite against Carolina. Seattle, a 3-point favorite against New England at home. Don't forget, there's probably no fans, so no home field advantage. So betting on the NFL is going to be really tricky. The biggest favorite in week 2, the Tennessee Titans, 11-point favorites against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Busy day tomorrow right here on the network, as I will have 3 shows for you. I will do my NFL Blitz at 12:30. Blue Jays Strike Zone at 1, Maple Leafs Forever at 1:30. So lots more sports to talk about tomorrow. Sports is coming back. It's big. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, COVID has created some real hurdles, especially in baseball, and we'll be on top of that tomorrow. We're going to break down all the games from today, so busy day tomorrow. And I appreciate all of you sticking with me for the hours. We went through everything in baseball today. Of course, Crunching the Numbers can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network on its 122 platforms. Please check out barnburner.ca for all the news. BarnBurner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Eric Cohen, back tomorrow. For everyone else, stay safe, and I'll speak to you then. Keep it locked in. Bye for now.